My name is Megan O'Malley. I'm 38 years old, and for 15 years, I've worked as a registered nurse here in Columbus, Ohio. Most of that time has been spent navigating the demanding, often chaotic, world of a busy downtown hospital's medical surgical floor. My life was a cycle of shifts, charting, patient care. Quick meals grabbed in the break room, and collapsing into bed, only to repeat the process. I was good at my job, competent, compassionate, able to handle emergencies with practiced calm. But beneath the surface of professional efficiency, there was a quiet, persistent confusion, a disconnect I rarely admitted, even to myself. You see, I grew up going to church every Sunday. Catechism classes, youth group, memorized prayers, I checked all the boxes. I believed in God, in Jesus, in the general framework of Christianity. But if you'd asked me back then to explain who God really was, especially the concept of the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, 3 in 1, I would have fumbled. Honestly, it felt like an impossible, abstract theological equation I was supposed to accept but couldn't truly grasp. God the Father felt distant, vaguely judgmental. Jesus felt historical. A figure in stories I knew well but struggled to connect with personally. The Holy Spirit? That was the fuzziest concept of all, some kind of ethereal force or afterthought. My prayers often felt like reciting lines to an unseen, unknowable director, dutiful, perhaps, but lacking intimacy or real understanding. My faith felt like a language I spoke by rote, without truly understanding the grammar or the heart behind the words. Life as a nurse, witnessing suffering and death daily, only amplified this disconnect. I saw patients and families clinging to faith with fierce devotion, finding comfort I couldn't quite access. I saw others rage against a God they felt had abandoned them. I offered quiet prayers for my patients, sometimes sat with families wrestling with impossible decisions, but my own theological foundation felt shaky, insufficient. How could God be all-loving yet allow such pain? How could he be three distinct persons yet somehow one being? The mystery felt more like a barrier than an invitation. My colleague and friend, Lisa, who shared many shifts and break room coffees with me, sometimes talked about her own more vibrant faith. I'd listen, nod, maybe ask a surface-level question, but I kept my deeper confusion guarded. It felt like admitting a professional failing. A nurse, dealing with life and death, should have a better handle on the big questions, right? The winter leading up to February 2023 was particularly brutal. A vicious flu strain hit Columbus hard, overwhelming the hospitals. We were short-staffed, working mandatory overtime, pulling double shifts. The physical and emotional toll was immense. Exhaustion became my constant companion. My own quiet prayers became even more perfunctory. Tired pleas for strength just to get through the next 12 hours. I barely had energy for anything outside of work, let alone contemplating the intricacies of the divine nature. Little did I know. My exhaustion was a prelude to an encounter that would shatter my confusion and redefine my understanding of everything I thought I believed. February 3, 2023. Started like any other grueling day during that relentless flu season. I'd worked a double shift the day before and had only managed a few hours of restless sleep before dragging myself back for another 12-hour marathon. I woke up with a dull headache pounding behind my eyes, swallowing a couple of ibuprofen with lukewarm coffee, hoping it was just dehydration or fatigue. The unit was chaotic, call lights blinking constantly, alarms beeping, families anxious, staff stretched thin. I pushed through the morning, running on autopilot and caffeine, tending to patients, managing IVs, coordinating care. Around lunchtime, the headache, which had been a dull throb, suddenly escalated. It wasn't just pain, it felt like a lightning bolt had struck inside my skull. An intense, blinding agony unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Nausea surged. The fluorescent lights of the nurses' station seemed unbearably bright. I remember leaning against the counter, trying to catch my breath, the room starting to spin. Lisa was charting nearby. She looked up, concern immediately replacing her usual harried expression. "Megan? Are you okay? You look pale as a ghost." "Head." I managed to gasp, pressing my hand to my temple. "Worst headache, ever. I think I need to sit down for a minute." Those were the last words I remember saying. The next sensation wasn't pain, but a strange detachment, as if the floor rushed up to meet me, followed by instantaneous blackness. My next moment of awareness was bizarrely peaceful and utterly confusing. I was floating, weightless, near the ceiling of the very nurse's station where I had just collapsed. Below me, pandemonium had erupted. I saw my own body crumpled on the floor. Lisa was yelling, "Code Blue! Code Blue, nurse's station! Get the crash cart!" Other nurses and doctors rushed in. Someone started chest compressions on my still form. Someone else was trying to establish an 4-line. I saw Lisa's face, pale and terrified, as she helped position an airway device. The rhythmic beeping of a portable monitor brought into the scene devolved into a high-pitched, continuous, flatline tone. My body. Lifeless. A code blue being run on me. As a nurse, I knew exactly what that flatline meant. Yet, floating there, observing the frantic efforts below, I felt no fear. None. The crushing headache was gone. The exhaustion was gone. The stress of the flu season, the underlying theological confusion, all of it dissolved into an encompassing, profound peace. It was the stillness at the eye of the storm. A serenity so deep it felt more real than the chaos unfolding beneath me. It felt like the steady, perfect rhythm on a heart monitor when everything is exactly as it should be, a baseline of pure, unadulterated peace. As I observed the scene below with this strange detachment, a new reality began to overlay the stark white and blue of the hospital floor. A light dawned around me. Not from the ceiling fixtures, but from everywhere and nowhere at once. It wasn't just bright, it was alive, vibrant, shimmering with countless hues I couldn't name. It felt warm, welcoming. Like being enveloped in a gentle embrace, yet vast and powerful, like finding myself held within a loving, breathing galaxy. The sounds of the code blue, the alarms, the shouts, the rhythmic counting of compressions, began to fade, replaced by a soft, ethereal hum, a resonance that felt like the universe singing a song of welcome. This living light drew me gently but irresistibly away from the scene of my physical death. The nurse's station, my colleagues. My lifeless body, they receded like a distant memory as I moved deeper into this luminous reality. Ahead, within the light, a figure began to coalesce, radiating warmth and familiarity. It was my mother. She had passed away 5 years prior after a long battle with cancer. Seeing her here, not frail and suffering as I remembered her last, but whole, vibrant, and bathed in this gentle light, brought a wave of pure joy and relief washing through me. She looked younger, peaceful, her eyes sparkling with love and a knowing wisdom. She smiled. The same loving smile that had comforted countless childhood scrapes and teenage heartbreaks. "Oh, Kathleen," she began, then paused, a gentle correction in her spiritual tone, "No, Megan. That's right. Megan, my sweet girl." Her voice wasn't just sound, it felt like pure love wrapped in familiar tones. "You forgot, didn't you? You forgot how close he really is. Always." Tears of joy streamed down my spiritual face. I reached out, wanting to embrace her, to hold on to this tangible piece of love from my past. But she simply smiled again, a loving, encouraging smile. And gestured slightly, indicating I should move forward, deeper into the light. She wasn't dismissing me, she was guiding me. Letting me know this reunion was just a gentle stop on a more profound journey. Trusting her, I moved forward as she seemed to gently recede or blend back into the light, leaving me facing an even greater intensity ahead. The light grew brighter, warmer, more concentrated, resolving into an undeniable presence. It wasn't a form I could clearly delineate at first, but an overwhelming consciousness of pure love, pure wisdom, pure power, gentle yet absolute. It felt like standing before the source of the galaxy hug light itself. Then, within that presence, I perceived him. Jesus. Again, not the artistic interpretations I grew up with, but a being of radiant light and warmth, his form hinted at rather than sharply defined, yet unmistakably personal. His eyes, pools of liquid light, seemed to hold the wisdom of eternity, and they looked upon me with complete understanding, seeing not just Megan the nurse, but the confused, seeking heart beneath. They saw my doubts, my questions, my rote faith, and held it all in infinite compassion. Megan, his voice resonated within my soul, feeling simultaneously like the heartbeat of the universe and an intimate whisper meant only for me. You have carried questions in your heart for a long time. You seek to understand the nature of God, the one who loves you. Today, my child, you will understand. His presence wasn't demanding or intimidating, it was an invitation, a promise of clarity, extended with overwhelming love. My spirit felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with profound awe. The lifelong fog of confusion felt poised to finally lift. Jesus didn't launch into a theological discourse. He didn't use abstract terms or complex analogies. Instead, he invited me to experience the reality of the Godhead. The light around us seemed to shift, becoming not just a backdrop, but an active medium of revelation. The Father, first, I had an overwhelming sense of being held, shaped, known from my very inception by infinite, loving, creative intention. It wasn't a visual image of an old man with a beard, but a profound feeling, an experiential knowing. I felt like clay being tenderly, skillfully molded on a potter's wheel by unseen hands that radiated warmth, purpose, and absolute security. I understood, in that moment, God the Father not as a distant judge, but as the source, the loving architect, the intimate designer who conceived me, knew me, and purposed me before time began. It was a feeling of ultimate belonging, of being perfectly crafted by love itself. The Son, then, my awareness shifted. I experienced the dynamic power of the word, logos, spoken into existence. It wasn't just sound, but creative energy, light erupting, life springing forth. I felt the intention behind creation, the divine blueprint being expressed. I perceived Jesus not just as the historical man who walked the earth, but as that eternal Word made flesh, the ultimate revelation of the Father's heart. The bridge between the divine and the created, the one through whom all things were made and through whom redemption came. It was like seeing the light and hearing the voice of creation simultaneously, understanding him as the perfect expression, the image of the invisible God. The sacrifice on the cross felt like the ultimate word of love spoken into the brokenness of humanity. The Holy Spirit, next, my experience shifted again. I felt a gentle, pervasive presence like wind, like breath, moving through all of creation, animating, connecting, sustaining. It was the Ruach, the breath of God. I felt this Spirit breathing life into my own spiritual form, imparting wisdom, comfort, energy. It wasn't a vague force, but a distinct person, the intimate comforter Jesus had promised. The one who dwells within believers, guiding, empowering, convicting, revealing truth. It felt like the very atmosphere of heaven. The active presence of God engaging with his creation and his children. The unity, the most profound part was understanding how these three distinct experiences flowed from a single, unified source. It wasn't like watching three separate actors on a stage, it was like experiencing a single, infinitely complex and beautiful piece of music with three perfectly harmonized, interwoven melodies, each distinct, yet all part of the same composition, enhancing and revealing the others. Or perhaps like a single, pure flame giving off distinct light and heat, yet remaining one fire. The overwhelming feeling was one of perfect unity, perfect love, perfect relational harmony within the Godhead. There was no hierarchy in terms of essence, no division. Only distinct persons eternally coexisting in a dynamic dance of love as one God. We are one, Megan. Jesus' voice confirmed the experience, his presence encompassing the reality of Father, Son, and Spirit. 3 persons, one God, eternally existing in fellowship of love. And this one God has loved you with an everlasting love, before the foundations of the world were laid. The clarity was breathtaking. The lifelong confusion vanished, replaced by a simple, profound, relational understanding. It wasn't a doctrine I had mentally grasped. It was a reality I had experienced. Overwhelmed by this revelation of God's nature and his personal love for me, my own unworthiness surged to the surface. Flashes from my life review, times I'd mechanically recited prayers without heart, times I'd doubted his presence, times I'd neglected seeking him amidst the busyness of life, flooded my mind. But Lord, I managed to communicate, my spirit shrinking back slightly, I haven't been faithful. I've been so confused, so lukewarm. I don't deserve this understanding, this love. Jesus' presence didn't waver in its warmth. His light seemed to intensify, bathing my feeling of unworthiness in pure grace. My child, his voice was infinitely gentle. No one earns this love or this understanding through merit. It is all gift, freely given. The Father chose you before time. I redeemed you on the cross, covering all your failings. The Holy Spirit dwells within you, sealing you as his own, even when you were unaware or confused. That is why you are here. Not because of your worthiness, but because of our unwavering love and grace. His words washed over me, cleansing the last vestiges of shame, leaving only profound gratitude. In that moment, I wanted nothing more than to stay forever. Here, in this light, in this understanding, in this perfect love, was everything my soul had ever truly sought: clarity, purpose, belonging, peace. Why would I ever leave? But then, thoughts of earth surfaced. My mother, still living, who had first taught me those rote prayers, maybe now I could share something real with her. Lisa, my friend and colleague, wrestling with her own faith amidst the hospital chaos, maybe I could offer her a clearer hope. My patients, facing fear and uncertainty, maybe I could now reflect a truer image of the God who loved them. The choice, once again, was presented not as a command, but as an inherent consequence of the love I'd received. Could I keep this understanding, this experience of relational reality, just for myself? With a pang of sorrow at leaving this perfect communion, but with a newfound sense of purpose burning within me, I formed the intention: I want to go back. I want to live what I now understand. Jesus nodded, his eyes filled with loving approval. He placed his hands on my spiritual shoulders, a gesture of blessing and commissioning. Go, then, Megan. Live in the reality of our love. Walk in relationship with the Father, through me, empowered by the Spirit. Share the clarity you have found, not just in words, but in your life. The light began to gently recede. We are always with you. The transition back was abrupt, a sudden plunge from infinite light into jarring physical sensation. A gasp tore through my throat as air was forced into my lungs. Pain exploded in my head. The cacophony of the ICU, monitors beeping, ventilators hissing, hushed voices, assaulted my ears. My eyelids fluttered open to the harsh reality of fluorescent lights and concerned faces peering down at me. Lisa was there, her eyes wide with a mixture of relief and shock. Megan. You're back. Oh my gosh, you're back, she cried, grabbing my hand. Later, I would learn the details: a ruptured cerebral aneurysm, 7 minutes of cardiac arrest during the initial resuscitation efforts. A subsequent emergency neurosurgery. The doctors called my survival, and especially my lack of significant neurological deficit, miraculous, inexplicable. But lying there, weak and disoriented, I knew it wasn't just inexplicable luck or medical skill. It was grace. It was purpose. And deep within the pain and confusion, the clarity I had received remained, a steady, quiet anchor. God wasn't a confusing doctrine anymore, he was a relational reality I had met. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, intimately known, overwhelmingly loving. My recovery was long and arduous, involving weeks in the hospital and months of rehabilitation. But something fundamental had shifted within me. The fear and confusion that had clouded my faith were gone, replaced by a quiet certainty and a profound sense of peace, even amidst the physical challenges. And my relationship with God began to transform from rote observance to living conversation. My prayer life changed dramatically. Before, my prayers were often vague appeals sent up to a distant deity. Now, I found myself talking naturally, conversationally, to God as Father. I'd thank Him for the small progresses in my recovery, confess my frustrations or fears without hesitation, ask for strength for the next therapy session. Consciously placing my healing in His loving hands, picturing Him as the gentle potter restoring His creation. I'd consciously thank Jesus, the Word, for bridging the gap, for making this relationship possible through His sacrifice. And I'd actively invite the Holy Spirit's presence, asking for comfort, guidance, and strength. Feeling His peace settle over me in response. Prayer became less of a duty and more of the natural breathing of a relationship. Reading the Bible also became a new experience. Passages I had read countless times before suddenly opened up with new meaning. When Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," I didn't just nod intellectually. I felt the resonance of that unified reality I had experienced. When Paul wrote about the Spirit dwelling within believers, it wasn't abstract theology. It was a confirmation of the intimate presence I now consciously welcomed each day. The Scriptures became less like a history book or a rule book, and more like a love letter, revealing the heart of the triune God I now knew relationally. My interactions with others began to change too. When Lisa visited, full of questions about my miraculous recovery, I haltingly tried to share some of what I had experienced, the peace, the light, the overwhelming love, the clarity about God. I didn't push the Trinity explanation heavily, knowing how complex it sounded, but I spoke of God as personal, relational, loving. Lisa, usually pragmatic, listened with unusual quietness, a thoughtful look in her eyes. Our friendship deepened, moving beyond just work complaints to sharing more openly about faith and doubt. Later, as I gradually returned to nursing part-time, my approach to patients shifted. I remember one young woman facing a difficult diagnosis, her eyes filled with hopelessness. The old Megan might have offered standard professional reassurance. The new Megan sat with her a little longer, listened more deeply, and then gently shared, "I know things feel overwhelming right now. But I want you to know, based on something I went through, that you are incredibly loved, right now, just as you are. By a God who is much closer than you think. He understands your pain." I didn't preach doctrine, but I tried to convey the feeling of that unconditional love I had experienced. I saw a flicker of light return to her eyes, a small seed of hope planted. My work became less about tasks and diagnoses, and more about being a conduit for that divine, relational love. Life isn't perfect. I still have physical limitations from the aneurysm. I still get tired, frustrated, and sometimes fall back into old patterns of worry. But the core confusion about God is gone. He is no longer an unsolvable equation or a distant mystery. He is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, a dynamic, loving, relational God who invites us into communion. The NDE didn't just save my physical life, it resurrected my spiritual life, transforming faith by rote into faith lived in relationship. If this testimony of finding clarity and relationship with the triune God has spoken to your heart or encouraged you in your own faith journey, please subscribe to this channel. We share stories of hope, transformation, and encounters with the divine every day, aiming to strengthen your faith and remind you of the profound love God has for you. Click subscribe and join our community seeking deeper relationship with Him. May you experience the fullness of His presence today.